Hey, old woman, you're so slow. My dog's bowl is still dirty. He hasn't eaten yet. Hurry up and finish it. That shout came from my husband, Mark, standing over my mother while she was washing dishes with her hands shaking. 2 weeks later, my husband looks pale and shaking in front of my mother and me. As always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel so satisfying, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and tell me which city you're watching this story from in the comments. For everyone who's already liked and subscribed, I pray that God makes your problems easier, widens your income, and keeps you healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now listen carefully to my story. When I walked into the house that night, my feet hurt, my head hurt, everything hurt. I just finished another 10-hour shift at the office. My boss loved the words, "just one more report," and "it's only for this month," but somehow it had already been 6 months. I dropped my bag by the door and heard water running in the kitchen, along with something else. My husband's voice, sharp and mean. "Hey, old woman, you're so slow. My dog's bowl is still dirty. He hasn't eaten yet. Hurry up and finish it." My stomach clenched. I walked toward the kitchen and saw my mother, Margaret, standing at the sink. She had her sleeves rolled up, her hands deep in soapy water, and she was trembling, not a little. I could see the plate in her hand shaking. Mark was standing behind her with his arms crossed, staring down at the floor like a king annoyed with his servant. Our dog, Bruno, was bouncing around his legs, confused, wagging his tail. I felt this wave of anger rush up my neck. I responded to them with a voice that came out calmer than I felt. "Mom, stop," I said, walking over. "Put the bowl down. Mark, don't ever talk to my mother like that again." My mother flinched and tried to smile at me. "It's okay, Emily," she whispered. "I'm almost done." Mark turned his head slowly toward me like I was the one being rude. "Excuse me," he said. "You come home from playing hero at the office, and this is how you talk to me? Your mother is staying here for free. She wants to help." "She's my mom, not our maid," I snapped. "She's 70. She's supposed to be resting, not running around after your dog." He laughed. It was a small, ugly sound. "Don't be dramatic. She offered. Right, Margaret?" He leaned toward my mom, and she nodded quickly, eyes still on the sink. In my head, I was thinking, "You're scaring her so much, she'll say anything." I stepped closer to my mom and took the dish from her hand. "Mom, go sit down. I've got it." She wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the dining table, moving slower than usual. Mark watched her like he was watching a burden move across his living room. He leaned in closer to me, dropping his voice so she wouldn't hear. "You're making me look bad," he hissed, "in my own house." I stared at him. "Your own house? Mark, this house is in my name because my mom sold her house to help us with the down payment, remember?" His jaw tightened. "Yeah, well, without my salary, you'd never be able to keep up with the mortgage," he snapped, "so don't throw that in my face." Right there, I could have kept fighting. Instead, I went quiet for a few seconds. I knew if we kept going in front of my mother, she'd end up apologizing to him. That's how twisted things had become. My mom had moved in with us 8 months earlier after my dad was gone for good. We didn't want her living alone in that old house. She was still healthy, but she was getting forgetful. I thought it was a blessing to have her with us. At first, Mark pretended to agree. He hugged her when she arrived. "A house is not a home without a grandma," he'd said in this cheerful voice. "Stay as long as you want." But I started noticing things. Suddenly, he'd complain that the living room was too crowded with old lady stuff. He'd make comments about how much electricity we were using. He'd sigh loudly whenever Mom accidentally left a cabinet door open or forgot where she put something. Then, slowly, the chores started shifting. "Margaret, do you mind folding the laundry? Emily's exhausted." "Mom, can you start dinner? We're both swamped at work." "Could you walk Bruno this afternoon? I'm so busy with these emails." At first, my mom was happy to help, but then I noticed the way her hands shook more, how she struggled to remember if she'd already taken her medicine, how Mark would roll his eyes when she repeated the same story. One Sunday, I came home earlier than usual and found her scrubbing the bathroom floor on her knees. "Mom, what are you doing?" I rushed to her. She looked up embarrassed. "Mark asked me to," she said quietly. "He said he'd already done it last week, and it's only fair if we take turns." When I confronted Mark, he acted offended. "Oh my God, Emily, it's not that deep." He threw up his hands. "She asked what she could do to help. You're always turning everything into a problem. Maybe talk to your therapist about why you love drama." That was the first time he called me dramatic. It wouldn't be the last. The first big red flag dropped from the most unexpected person, our neighbor's teenage son, Josh. One afternoon, I came home early because my boss finally let me leave on time. As I parked, Josh was sitting on the porch railing outside his house, scrolling his phone. "Hey, Emily," he called out, "is your grandma okay?" "She's my mom," I corrected with a little smile. "Why, did something happen?"
He looked uncomfortable. "I don't know. I heard shouting earlier. I was walking past your kitchen window and your husband was kind of yelling at her. Something about paperwork and how she owes him." My heart skipped. "Paperwork?" I asked. "What paperwork?" He shrugged. "Not sure, but she was crying and saying she didn't understand. Sorry if that's weird for me to say. I just thought you should know." That night, after Mark went out for drinks with colleagues, I sat with my mom on the couch. "Mom," I said gently, "did Mark talk to you about some papers?" Her fingers twisted the edge of her cardigan. "Oh, it's nothing," she said. "He just said he'd help me fix my affairs so that it would be easier for you later." "What does that mean?" I asked. He said it would be better if I signed some documents now while I'm still clear-minded," she said slowly, "so there would be no confusion about the house and the savings, and you wouldn't get stuck with problems. He said you agreed." I felt my throat tighten. "I never agreed to anything," I said. "Mom, did you sign something already?" She shook her head. No, I told him I wanted to read it properly, but he said I'm overthinking and that you were too busy to explain everything." I froze on the spot. In my head, I was thinking, he's trying to move something into his name. He's trying to get power over her money, over our house, over everything. That was the first solid evidence that something was really off. From that day, I started paying more attention. I noticed how Mark always took the mail before anyone else. I noticed he'd take calls on the balcony, speaking in a low voice. I noticed he was checking my mom's medicine box a lot, counting pills, and then acting like he was helping. One night, when he thought I was asleep, I overheard him on the phone in the hallway. "Listen," he said in this urgent whisper. "Once the old woman sorts her stuff out, the house is basically ours anyway. Yeah, the title is in Emily's name now, but she trusts me. I can get her to sign. Relax, I just need a bit more time before I bring the documents to the bank." I felt cold all over. The next morning, I tried to talk to him. "Mark, what's going on with our finances? Why are you talking about bringing documents to the bank?" He smiled at me like I was a child. "Babe, you worry too much," he said, sipping his coffee. "I'm consolidating some debts so we can get a lower interest rate. Normal adult stuff. If you spent less time overthinking and more time trusting your husband, you'd sleep better." "I heard you say, once the old woman sorts her stuff out, the house is basically ours anyway. You mean my mother." He put the cup down hard. "There it is again, with the drama. You know she keeps messing up her bills and forgetting things. I'm trying to protect you from future headaches. But sure, make me the villain." There it was, gaslighting and reversing roles. He made himself sound like the victim and me like the ungrateful wife. I went quiet, but inside, something had shifted. I didn't trust him anymore. The turning point came on a Wednesday when I was working late again. My co-worker and friend, Lisa, dropped a folder on my desk. "You look like you're about to pass out. Go home." "I can't," I muttered. "Mark said we need to catch up on bills, and there's something going on with my mom and the house. It's complicated." Lisa sat down opposite me. "Try me," she said. "My brother is a lawyer. I hear complicated family horror stories all the time." I hadn't planned to tell anyone, but it just poured out. The shouting, the paperwork, the phone call about the bank, my mom almost signing things she didn't understand. Lisa listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was silent for a few seconds, then said, "Okay, no offense, but your husband sounds like dangerous. Not like jump scare dangerous, but slowly trying to take over everything." "You think he'd really do that?" I whispered. "People do worse for money," she said. "Look, my brother Adam deals with elder financial abuse cases. It's more common than you think. You need to see what those documents are and make sure nothing has been changed behind your back." I felt both terrified and relieved. "Can your brother help?" I asked. Lisa nodded. "I'll call him tonight, but you have to be ready. Once you start digging into this, you can't pretend you didn't see anything." 2 days later, Adam came to my house posing as Lisa's brother who works in finance. Mark wasn't home. He'd gone out to meet a client. We sat at the dining table with my mom, and Adam gently explained things in simple language. "Mrs. Margaret, do you have any papers Mark gave you? Anything he said you should think about signing?" My mom pulled a thin folder from the sideboard drawer. "There are these," she said. "He told me not to show them to anyone yet because it would confuse people." Adam opened them, scanned the pages, and his face darkened. "This is not small paperwork," he said, looking at me. "This is a transfer of your mom's remaining savings into a joint account with Mark as a primary holder. And this one," he held up another page, "is a document to change some clauses related to the house in case something happens to your mom." My heart pounded. "In case something happens to her?" I repeated. "It basically reduces your control and increases his," Adam said carefully. "If she signs this and later she becomes more ill or is gone for good, it gives him a lot of power." I stared at the black text on white paper. So clean, so normal, so evil. Adam kept going. "There's something else," he said. "Have you noticed changes in your joint accounts?" I frowned. "Mark handles most of it," I admitted. "He says I'm busy, so he'll take care of the boring stuff." "Boring stuff is where people steal from you," Adam said. "Bring me your last few bank statements if you can." Later that night, when Mark was in the shower, I pretended to look for a hair tie in his drawer and quietly took photos of every bank letter I saw. When he came out, I was already in bed, pretending to scroll my phone. The next day, I showed the photos to Adam in Lisa's office during lunch. He looked through them, whistled low, and shook his head. "There are big transfers to a separate account you don't know about," he said. "Looks like he's building a safety net for himself while lining up access to your mom's money and your house." I felt like throwing up. "So what do I do?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I can't just confront him. He'll twist it and make me look crazy. He'll tell everyone I'm ungrateful and trying to leave him with nothing." Adam leaned forward. "You don't confront him yet," he said. "You set a trap." The plan sounded like something from a movie, but I was desperate enough to go along with it.
Step 1, we quietly froze any changes Mark could make alone. Adam helped me talk to the bank and flag any suspicious transactions. Because my name was on the house and on the main accounts, they had to listen. Step 2, we collected more evidence. Lisa helped me install a simple recording app on my phone. I started leaving it in the living room or kitchen whenever Mark was around my mom. I captured him saying things like, "If you don't sign, you'll end up in some cheap care home and Emily won't even visit you. I'm the only one taking care of you. Emily is always at work. You owe me. Just sign, old woman. Stop asking so many questions." Every time I listened to those recordings later in my room, my hands shook. I couldn't believe this was the same man who used to bring me flowers for no reason. Step 3, we waited for him to make his big move. It arrived in the form of a fake apology. One evening, he came home with takeout from my favorite restaurant. He kissed my cheek, hugged my mom, and said, "I'm sorry I've been so stressed lately. Work is crazy. Money is tight. I know I've been hard on everyone." If I hadn't known better, I might have believed him. He poured my mom tea, brought out dessert, and put on this soft, caring act. Then he brought out a folder. "Emily, Mom, I think it's time we sort all the boring paperwork properly. I booked an appointment at the bank and with a notary this Friday. It's just to make sure everyone is taken care of. I want everything to be clear. No more confusion, okay?" In my head, I was thinking, here it is. This is it. Out loud, I forced myself to smile. "That sounds responsible, Mark. I'm glad you're taking care of things. Which bank?" He told me the name and time. I messaged Lisa under the table and said, "It's happening, Friday, 10 a.m. at Harborview Bank." She replied, "Adam will be ready. Don't worry, we've got you." Friday morning, the air felt heavy. Mark was in a great mood, humming as he put on his favorite shirt. "We're going to secure our future today," he said, kissing my forehead. "After this, you won't have to stress so much." My mom seemed nervous. She dressed in her best blouse and kept asking if she'd remember what to say. "You don't have to say much, Mom," I told her gently. "I'm going to be with you the whole time." What she didn't know was that Adam had already prepared the bank manager and the notary. They knew about the recordings, the fake documents, and the way Mark had been pushing her. At the bank, everything looked normal at first. We were led into a private meeting room. There was a long table, a stack of documents, and a man in a suit with a name tag, Stephen, branch manager. "Good morning," Stephen said politely. "Please have a seat." Mr. Mark shook his hand like they were best friends. "Thanks for fitting us in. I just want to get my family's affairs in order." We all sat, Mark beside me, my mom across from us. I could see her hands shaking again. Right then, the door opened quietly. Lisa slipped in, followed by Adam. Mark frowned. "What are they doing here?" he asked. I took a breath. "They're here on my invitation. Lisa is my friend. Adam is a lawyer. He's representing me and my mom." Mark laughed, but his voice had a strange edge now. "Why would we need a lawyer? We're just signing some harmless forms. This is family stuff, Emily. Are you trying to embarrass me?" Stephen cleared his throat. "Mr. Mark, because there are legal documents involving property and large sums of money, it's actually better that everyone has clear representation. It protects all parties." Mark's smile faded a bit, but he tried to pull it back. "Fine," he said tightly. "Let's just get this done." Adam opened his briefcase and laid out his own copy of the paperwork, ones he'd requested in advance from the bank and from the notary's office. "Before anyone signs anything," Adam said calmly, "I'd like to go over what you were planning to change, Mark." Mark rolled his eyes. "Go ahead," he said. "You'll see it's all very noble." Adam lifted the first document. This one would move Mrs. Margaret's remaining savings into a joint account where you are the primary decision maker, he read. She would lose independent control over her own money. That's to make it easier to pay her bills, Mark snapped. She keeps forgetting things. Adam picked up another. And this one, he continued, would adjust the clauses related to the house so that if Mrs. Margaret becomes more ill or is gone for good, her influence over the property disappears and you gain more control. Emily's position becomes weaker. Mark slammed his palm on the table. "This is ridiculous," he barked. "I'm trying to protect them. You're twisting everything." Stephen, the bank manager, spoke carefully. "Mr. Mark, this last page is also concerning," he said, pointing to one more document. "This appears to be an application to use the house as collateral for a separate loan under your name, one that your wife did not sign for." The room went silent. I turned slowly to Mark. "You were going to risk our house?" I whispered. He flushed. "It's just a temporary loan," he said, "for investments. I would have handled it. You wouldn't even have felt it. Can everyone stop acting like I'm a criminal? Look at me, Emily. I'm your husband." For a second, there was this tiny sting in my chest. I remembered the early days, the dates, the promises, the laughter. Then I remembered my mother on her knees scrubbing the bathroom, her hands shaking at the sink, his voice calling her old woman like she was trash, and something inside me went hard. "The problem is," I said slowly, "you are acting like a monster, and you did it to my mother, the person who literally sold her house to help us, the person you were trying to squeeze dry for your debts." My mom wiped her eyes and lifted her chin slightly. "I may be old, but I am not stupid. I trusted you like a son, and you treated me like this?" There was one last piece to the trap. The door opened again and another person walked in, someone Mark definitely didn't expect, a female staff member from the notary's office. "This is Claire," Adam said. "She's the clerk who called me." Claire nodded politely. When Mr. Mark booked the appointment for today, he asked if there was a way to simplify things so his wife wouldn't have to be involved in every decision. When I explained the law, he said, "There has to be some trick. Other people do it. I just need her to sign once." That's when I felt something was wrong. Mark's shoulders slumped. He looked nothing like the confident man barking orders at my mother. Now he looked small, lost, terrified. "Mr. Mark," Adam said, his tone final, "here's what's going to happen. No documents will be signed today. The bank will keep a record of everything that happened. Emily and Margaret will be seeking legal protection. There will be a formal complaint about attempted financial abuse and forgery. And if you try to intimidate them again, we'll take this to the next level." Mark finally broke. He slid off his chair and dropped to his knees right there in the bank office. "Emily, please," he begged, his voice cracking. "I made mistakes, okay? But I was just scared. We're drowning in debt. The business deal went bad. I didn't know what else to do. I swear I wasn't going to hurt your mom. I just needed her to sign. I can change. Don't ruin my life." My mom let out a bitter little laugh through her tears. "You were ready to ruin ours," she said. I looked at him kneeling there, shaking, and I realized something. I didn't feel pity. I felt relief. Finally, the mask had dropped in front of other people. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was right.
"I'm done, Mark," I said quietly. "After today, I'm contacting a divorce lawyer. You will not touch my mom, my house, or my accounts again. If you try, I'll use every single piece of evidence we have." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. "You can't do this," he whispered. "I already did," I replied, "and this time I'm not going to let you talk your way out of it." The weeks after that were messy, but they were also a turning point. Adam helped me file reports and set up legal protections for my mom and me. We put official blocks on the accounts. We documented everything. Mark tried to call, text, and even show up at the house, but I had already changed the locks and told him all communication had to go through my lawyer. My extended family, who used to think Mark was an amazing husband, found out what happened. Some of them had seen him crying, begging at the bank, and the story spread fast. People who once praised him started avoiding him. He lost one of his biggest clients when they heard about the attempted forgery. The bank flagged his name internally. Life stopped being easy for him. As for my mom and me, we kept the house. Her savings stayed in her own account, safe. I slowly cut my overtime hours and started looking for a new job with saner hours because I realized something. Money is important, but not worth living in a home where the price is my mother's dignity and my own sanity. Months later, I sat on the same couch where Mark once convinced my mom to scrub floors and help out more. Bruno, our dog, lay with his head on my mom's knee while she watched TV. Her hands were still a little shaky, but she laughed more. She moved slower, but with less fear. I made us tea and handed her a cup. "Mom," I said softly, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." She patted my hand. "You saw it when it mattered. You protected me and yourself. That's what counts." I leaned back and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, the house felt like ours again. Not his, ours. From everything that happened, I learned that someone who truly loves you will never use your parents, your money, or your home as weapons to control you. You can forgive yourself for missing the early signs, but once you see the truth, you have to protect yourself and the people who depend on you. So if you're in a situation like mine, please don't stay quiet and hope it will magically get better. If you've been through something similar or want to share your own story, write it in the comments. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, hit the like button, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.